What's going on, everyone? Today we have the RX 9070 XT. We're going to be checking it out in Hogwarts Legacy at 1440 and 4K resolution. Of course, we're going to go through all the different settings and see how you can expect it to perform with and without ray tracing, upscaling, and all the different settings in between. We're pairing it today with a 14600K and 32 gigabytes of RAM. All the components that I use to record and produce these videos will be listed in the links below. As usual, if you click those links and buy anything through those links, it does support the channel a small degree. So thank you if you do use those. I really appreciate it. And if you are new here, please consider subscribing. If you're not new here, thanks for coming back. I appreciate it. What's going on, everyone? Today we have the RX 9070 XT. We've got it paired with a 14600K and 32 gigabytes of RAM. So right here, we're just going to take a stroll through Hogsmeade, Glitch City. It does smooth out quite a bit more once you leave this area, but this is typically the worst case scenario. So it's not representative of the entire game, but I did want to call that out, regardless that, it is a large portion of the game. You do spend a lot of time here, although it's not a big area. But anyway, let's just keep going. This is just low settings on 4K resolution, no upscaling, no frame generation. Let's just head on out here to the countryside, see what kind of performance we can expect in most of the game. This is pretty reflective of how it runs generally outside of Hogsmeade, of course. All right, so let's jump over here and just check out the next setting up. Let's go up to medium and get that applied. All right, so this is 4K medium, no upscaling. And this game does have ray tracing. However, I'm going to save it to the end. It does require a restart, and it doesn't run that well. I've had some crashes so far on ray tracing with this current setup, so I don't want it to interrupt the test. But, regardless, I'll try to cover it the best I can at the end. Whatever your feelings about ray tracing in this title are completely personal, but I just wanted to show everything comprehensively here. So medium gives you about 127 FPS or so, still super respectful. This game is a couple years old, but this hardware is the 9070 XT is really proving to be quite one of the better buys this GPU cycle. Plenty of power, and if you can find it at the MSRP, which good luck with that, it's a great purchase. You're looking at power around 5070 Ti for less money, so that's always a good thing. All right, so anyway, let's just keep going. I'm going to jump down to the settings here and kick it over to high. All right, so we don't need any upscaling right now. So I'm kind of just, how I do my testing is we run through it, and then depending on the game, something like this, I shoot for around 60 FPS typically. But like a first-person shooter, something like that, I would obviously want higher. But right now we're looking like everything is, there we go, took care of him. Everything is looking really good. That big effect right there ran fine. So that's, a good sign too, is not just running around, but also throwing some spells around to see how it looks. We dipped down to about 80, 84, then came right back up to 90. All right, so let's just keep on going and check out the next level here. So let's jump down to Ultra. So Ultra at 4K. Let's see how we fare here. Let everything kind of load in. There we go. All right, so yeah, everything looks like 63, 70. So, this is pretty representative of how it's going to run most of the time. Now, there are areas, of course, where you would want a little bit of insurance as far as your frames go. But for the most part, this is a nice running title now. It's been patched to death. It's still not perfect, but it is better than when it came out for sure. But yeah, 60 FPS here, a bit on the low side, 58. Now, once we go into some of the more populated areas, it might dip down a little bit. So let's see what kind of insurance we can give ourselves. And I want to start mentioning the top right, there's the PCL. That is the post-compute latency. And that is going to, that's going to give us, kind of an insight into what we can expect as far as your reaction time and how kind of sloppy the controls feel. Right now they feel pretty good, but I have noticed this game feels a bit looser than most titles. So I like for the PCL to be a little bit lower on a game, on this game at least. And to achieve that, the easiest way to do that at this point would definitely be to introduce some upscaling. That's going to lower your background resolution. It's going to raise your background, your main FPS, I guess, your performance, and it's going to lower that response time. So the best way to do that is just come in here, and we've got some upscaling we can implement. Let's go to FSR3. Going to leave it on quality. Sharpening, that's fine. We're going to leave that alone. No frame generation at the moment, but we'll check that out. All right, so we're just going to keep on going here. And to be clear, this is not implementing any ray tracing. We'll check that out at the end just in case you skipped here. I do tend to repeat things a little bit for that reason. So that lowered our PCL down to 48 milliseconds with a 93 FPS, frames per second there, and a nice smooth frame time graph. So this is a nice setting. We're allocating 10.8 gigs of RAM, which is not high, not low. It's pretty decent, not bad. But we got 16 on this card, so we should be perfectly fine as far as VRAM for the remainder of this test. I don't think ray tracing is going to kill it that much, so let's just keep going. 100 FPS, 43 milliseconds. Let's just see what a couple more levels of FSR upscaling can give us, because 4K upscales quite nicely down to performance. You're using a background resolution of HD quality, so 1080p. And that's going to lower our PCL down even more. We're at 39 milliseconds, somewhere around there. Not a huge increase on our FPS, but again, at this point, we're just trying to get that response time down. That's kind of the goal. You can get to 60 without any upscaling in this title on the 9070, but to get that PCL down, using some upscaling isn't a bad idea if you're sensitive to that kind of thing. I play this game on a controller, and I can tell, so I know that if you play it on a mouse and keyboard, you'll definitely be able to feel it. So again, this game's just a little bit looser than a lot of games that I've played in the past. Just trying to get some effects going here. So we're dropping down on FPS, down about 100, 107, yeah, around there. All right, so let's just keep going, up in these settings and see what we can do on performance out here on the Quidditch field. So let's jump into performance and see what that does for mainly our PCL, because our performance is fine right now. As far as like frame rate and all that kind of stuff goes, I'm no complaints there here at 4K. But again, getting that PCL down is nice. If you can keep the clarity good, sharp and nice looking, like right here, performance FSR looks perfectly fine to me at 4K. And you've got a 35 millisecond PCL. So this is a nice way to play it here. Again, we're not going to mess with any sort of ray tracing right now, but we are going to check out some frame generation. So let's come back down and go back up to that quality preset. Let me see where we're at here. All right, so jump over here to quality, grab my mouse, it'll make it a lot faster. All right, so quality, let's just get a recap where we were on quality, just in case you've forgotten, because I certainly have, because my memory's terrible. All right, so we were at about 100 FPS here, 45 milliseconds on our post-compute latency, using about 11, or allocating about 11, using about 9. Everything looks pretty good, though. We're just going to jump back over here and see what frame generation does for us. There at ultra settings, because you can totally do ultra settings with this hardware, no problems there at all. All right, so we're going to jump down here. Frame generation on. All right, so our frame generation is on. We're on quality FSR at 4K ultra settings, and that's going to give us a post-compute latency of about 46, 45, still under that kind of 50 millisecond threshold that I like to shoot for. That gives us 135 FPS. We have used a little bit more VRAM because we are generating frames. That's totally normal and totally typical. Frame generation is very reliant on available VRAM, and thankfully, this card at this price point with 16 gigs, for the power that it has, it's hard not to recommend it, especially if you're looking for something that is more on the AMD side, a little bit easier on the wallet. Who knows what it's going to kind of level out as far as MSRP goes. But hopefully that will straighten itself out soon. And by the time you're watching this video, you'll be able to, buy them widely available at that MSRP. So anyway, 136 FPS ain't bad at all. Let's see what we're going to go with here. So let's just recap here. So we were on balanced. We're going to cut that frame generation off just to recap where we were at. All right, so balanced gives us about 110 or so. Let's see. Let's just get some effects going in here. See what we're working with. All right, so yeah, looks like the fire drops it a little bit. Yeah, it looks like the fire is kind of like the hardest one. But yeah, we are looking at 127 FPS in the good spots and 90 FPS in the bad spots. Nothing wrong with that at all. 27 milliseconds on our PCL. So let's come over here and check out frame generation. Leave everything else alone. So frame generation is on. All right, so we're at 127, 130, and our PCL went up a little bit with the frame generation. That's normal, frame generation is, it does add a little latency, typically not too bad if you've got a nice high base frame rate. And in this case we did. It was 90 at the bad spots, but we're still at that 50 millisecond threshold, still under it. So everything looks really good. 1% lows, that doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah, there we go. I was going to say, because sometimes when I go in and out of the menu, there is a stutter, which screws up the 1% lows for just a little bit until it kind of catches back up. So if you see that, that's why. But 0.01% lows are right there around 60 FPS, which is perfectly fine. That's what you want to see. That's great. All right, so really strong performing hardware here. This card is something I've recommended quite a bit. All right, so, and again, when I say recommended, I just mean I like it. That doesn't mean that you have to. These are all it's all just information, not recommendation. So, that's why I go through all the settings like pretty meticulously, because everybody plays completely differently from everyone else. And it's all personal, so, Anyway, all right, so we're at 27 milliseconds of post-compute latency. Now, running this at performance, FSR gives you a lot better PCL. I mean, this is like by far the most responsive result. Even though the FPS isn't that different, the responsiveness is dramatically improved from, 68 or 70 down to mid-20s, sometimes as low as upper teens. Looks super, super nice and also extremely responsive. Again, once you throw ray tracing in, all these numbers kind of go to the wayside. And ray tracing in this title doesn't really justify it. The lighting looks really good anyway. I actually played the whole game with no ray tracing. I just didn't think it was like that beneficial to the visual, presentation. But we'll check it out, kind of at the end. Hopefully we won't get a crash. I've tried it a few times and it just, the game does not like ray tracing, or this hardware at least does not like ray tracing. But anyway, yeah, I'm going to get off my tangent. So we're at 115 FPS here. And let's jump over here and see what we can do as far as turning some frame generation, activating that on top of the performance FSR here at 4K. Again, not a huge improvement to your FPS. So maybe I wouldn't run frame generation because it did introduce a good bit of latency. And there's a stutter there. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but frame generation is great before, unless you find out, situations like this where it actually adds a lot of latency for no real gain in FPS. I mean, what's the difference between 109 and 130 on a game like this? You can be the judge, but I don't think there's that much of a difference, if at all. And is it worth it? I wouldn't say it is. I mean, I would just say, like, it would look a lot better. I've never gotten used to this broom. I would say it would look a lot better without it and run smoother, and you'd have a lot better PCL, and everything would be, that's kind of how I would run it. So, yeah, here we go. All right, so let's check out 1440 and see what kind of performance we can expect there. I'm going to start that off on high native just because there's not a huge reason to check it out at the lower resolutions, especially with this CPU. It would probably just introduce bottlenecking, and that's not really a super realistic way to, you don't buy a 9070 XT to run 1440 low, you know. So let's just keep going. All right, so here we are at 1440p. We are on the ultra setting, no upscaling. So we're at a nice, comfortable 110 FPS, a PCL of 40 milliseconds. So if you are just completely allergic to upscaling, here you go. You don't have to upscale at 1440p on this hardware, and you certainly have a nice low PCL. But if we do want to get this up a little bit, as far as like making the PCL a little bit better, maybe getting a little bit higher frames, you could definitely do that. Let's go ahead and take care of this guy. There we go. All right, sweet. Drop down to about 94 there with that exchange. But yeah, we are looking pretty good though. I mean, PCL is going to be something that I focus on a little bit because, like I said earlier in the video, this game has a little looser feeling controls for some reason. So I like to have a lower PCL than I typically would on a game like this otherwise. So let's introduce some some upscaling. So right now we're just going to go down to that quality, see what that looks like. So quality will probably introduce a little bit of bottlenecking on this CPU. A stronger CPU would be, this is a 14600K. Something like a 7800X3D would probably be a little bit better choice if you're on the Intel platform and you're interested in something more powerful. I would probably just recommend going up to a 14700. A 14700 and a 14900 perform about the same across the board in games. With the 14600, you just get a little bit better budget, value for it, because as you can see, we're getting some great frames here, even though the GPU is not getting fully utilized. So let's just come down here and introduce some frame generation and see what that does, and see if that changes things a little bit, maybe with the CPU getting utilized, or being able to keep up a little bit more. All right, so right here we're just going to check out what we are looking like as far as frame generation goes. So let's turn that on and then see how we are as far as our metrics go. Let me bring those back. I didn't mean to do that. All right, so yeah, that's going to get our usage on this CPU is around 90 on our GPU, so we are still having a little bit of bottlenecking. But again, 1440p for a 9070 XT is quite overkill. Now I'm going to layer in some ray tracing on top of this at 1440. If it doesn't crash, that'll be great, but it isn't that stable, and you'll see what I mean here in a minute. So I'm going to go ahead and enable that ray tracing because obviously right here we're hitting some CPU limitations. So your performance on this graphics card is going to be no problem at 1440. All right, so right here we're just going to come over here and introduce some ray tracing, and that's going to really just hit our performance hard. I'm going to go ahead and just turn it all on. All right, so I'll be right back. All right, so here is those same settings with ray tracing on. Really suffering as far as our usage goes. Let's try to see if we can get that up a little bit. Now, ray tracing introduces a lot of lag in these menus. It takes forever for this little book to animate on. Things are just like not super stable. Ray tracing in this game is still quite screwed up. As you can see, it's all turned on here. But let's come down here and check out what let's see with performance FSR, no frame generation, and let's see if that gives us a little bit better result. Again, I am bottlenecking quite terribly right here. So a stronger CPU would probably keep up a little bit more, but again, these settings are not super realistic. This is not what I would recommend buying a 9060 XT for by any means. But right here, performance, you're barely at 60 with quite a bit of bottlenecking. I will preface it with that, but it's just not a great experience. Ray tracing, as you can see, once we go up to 4K next, we're going to get a lot of that GPU utilization back. It's just because the hardware is the GPU right now is trying to run faster than the CPU can keep up with it, which, you know, if you want to spend a bunch of money on a CPU instead of just you know, raising your settings or going to 4K, you can do that. But again, this is definitely a 4K card for this title, in my opinion. But yeah, even with that bottlenecking, you're looking at just some really choppy performance overall, and you'll even see this in the 4K section coming up. I've recorded this independently just because I wasn't going to do 1440, then I decided kind of to do it just to show you how terrible the performance becomes whenever you do introduce ray tracing. So anyway, I'm going to jump over from the 1440 to the 4K section, and we will see you over there. All right, we are back. We're at 4K after a restart. We have got everything set to ultra with ultra ray tracing on, so all the different ray tracing you know, individual settings have all been turned on and set to ultra. So we're just going to check out how we are going to run things here. We're on FSR quality, no frame generation, and this is kind of where I'm going to start this test because frame generation, or not frame generation, ray tracing is extremely demanding in this title for no apparent reason. Right here we're at 47 FPS. We're allocating 13 gigs of VRAM using 12. I mean, and like, it is stuttery. I don't like this setting. I can't even get it to cooperate and run effectively at 1440p. It continues to crash. So I'm not really sure, you know, exactly what all else there is to show, but ray tracing is still quite broken. I mean, you know, it gives you a little bit of nicer reflections, but, you know, to give up all that performance, in my opinion, is just not worth it at all. We're going to go and see what some more upscaling does and probably call it a day because I'm sensing a lot of system instability right now. These menus are slow. It just really makes the whole game perform terribly for some reason. We're going to go down to, let's go down to balanced. Again, this is just going to be, if it holds on, if it freezes, I'll probably just call it a day. I mean, I've had to restart a few times. But 62 FPS here with a very, very jerky frame time graph, and you're not even at 60. You know, again, just going to ray tracing on this title is just it's like throwing an anchor out the window going down the highway. I mean, it is not worth. I mean, look at these textures. Like, it is, and we're not out of VRAM. Like, that's what's so weird. It just makes the whole game act so bizarrely that I just I don't like it. I played the whole game, like I said, without any ray tracing at all, like a year ago, and still it seems incredibly broken, no matter what you do. So let's see what our frames look like with some of these different spells, you know, and let's just call it. I mean, I think that the main thing is just going to be like playing it with no ray tracing. You're going to have a really good time. I mean, here at 4K with ray tracing on, even like up in the sky, I mean, it's like we're not even near like heavily ray traced elements. You know, it's just kind of like, I don't know where the performance goes whenever you introduce ray tracing, but the 9070 XT doesn't like it. The game doesn't like it. I just would avoid it. Again, it gives you virtually no different visuals whatsoever. Sometimes you can see a little reflection here and there, but it's just not worth it. I just kind of wanted to end on this ray tracing thing because, you know, it's the game gets a lot of flack for running poorly, but I think a lot of the time is because ray tracing might be left on, or people are attempting to judge it based on just how it performs in Hogsmeade and some of the other like more NPC areas. But out here in the field, it, you know, feels pretty good without ray tracing on. So yeah, I'm gonna wrap it up. That's kind of been like my 9070 XT look at this title. You know, a couple years old, but runs really, really great as long as you just don't mess with ray tracing at all. So that's going to wrap it up. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. If you're not new here, thanks for coming back and checking out my channel again. I appreciate all the comments and all of the positivity. Trying to really keep that attitude up. So, yeah, with that, I'm going to see you guys in the next one. Peace.